You see this script right here? I'm going to chuck that straight in the bin because we don't have time for that today. A brand new Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct was announced for this Wednesday, the 8th of August. And if I don't get my predictions out in time, what is even the point in making this video? So I asked our Supreme Overlord, Push Dustin, whether or not I could give my 100% biased opinion piece on Source Gaming, and he was like, yeah, sure, go for it, just make sure they know it's your opinion. And so, this is my opinion, not the opinion of Source Gaming, or anyone on that. This is all 100% me and my predictions and my theories. So, I am NantenJex, let's not waste time. These are the characters I think we'll be getting for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So Sakurai said that we shouldn't be expecting too many newcomers this time around. And so that has led some people to speculate maybe it'll be like one more with the additional 3 that we already know about. Or maybe it'll be just a handful or something. Well, here's the way I've been thinking about it. The average amount of characters we get per Smash game is 15, with the highest being Brawl's 18. So I took that, and I decided that all 7 of the returning veterans, the ones who won in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, should essentially count as newcomers. I mean, they didn't have all of their progress made from scratch, because obviously they already had movesets planned, and even the ones from Melee could be based on existing characters to make it quicker, but I think that's a good way to think about it. Because if you take them 7 off, you've got 11, and then if you take the 3 we know already, Inklings, Ridley and Daisy off, that gives you 8. So I'm thinking around 7 to 8 characters is what we should expect at most. Now I was originally going to say that we'd only see 4 characters revealed before launch, but the fact that we're getting a Super Smash Bros. Direct so early to me says that we may see a bit more, if not all of them. It's really up to Sakurai at this point. But for the sake of this, I think we will have 5 newcomers, 5 completely original newcomers, with 4 of them being shown off before reveal, and then either 2 or 3 Echo Fighters. Not all of them will be shown off before reveal, there'll be at least one that's a secret character, if not 2. So who do I think these characters are? I know that's what you're really all interested in, so let's start with the obvious one, the one that's been on every single leak for ages, ever since Das Vergeben has decided to let it out to the world that Simon Belmont would be in Super Smash Bros. And I totally agree with it. Simon Belmont is a big character from Castlevania, a big series from Konami. Konami is definitely a legacy company with a lot of big titles behind them, so having 2 characters from its own pool of IPs is totally validated. And Castlevania is like the last classic NES platformer, alongside the likes of Mega Man and Mario, that hasn't been in Super Smash Bros. Yet. Castlevania as a series has left its impact on video game history. In fact, it and Metroid together have made an entire genre of platformers known as Metroidvanias, and of all of the Castlevania protagonists, there are 2 that really stand out. Simon Belmont, the original hero, and the one that the original first 2 games and Super Castlevania 4 are all about, and then Alucard, Dracula's son. But Alucard is a lot more heavily associated with the PlayStation era, because that's when his game came out, Symphony of the Night. Whereas Simon Belmont's always been the Nintendo guy. And so with that in mind, Simon Belmont makes more sense as the Castlevania character. And really, Simon's only real competition from his own company was Bomberman, who has already been confirmed for an assist trophy role. So that opens up the door for Castlevania and Simon Belmont to get in. So that's the first one. That was the obvious one, the one that almost everybody has on their prediction list right now. So let's turn our heads away from third party and onto first party characters. And with that, I have got Pokemon. It's going to be a Pokemon from the 7th generation of games, Pokemon Sun and Moon. And I was going really back and forth for a while on who I thought this was going to be. Like most people, I originally thought Decidueye, but after thinking about it for a while, I thought that didn't really fit. Decidueye, he was really popular when Sun and Moon came out, because he had a really cool design, but in reality, Rowlet is the more popular Pokemon in his line. And Decidueye hasn't really done much since Sun and Moon came out, other than appear in Pokken. So my thoughts turn to another major character from Sun and Moon, and that is Mimikyu, who is really popular and has a lot of fans, both in Japan and outside of Japan. Got a lot of promotion, is one of the recurring characters in the Pokemon anime, was one of the boss battles in Pokemon Sun and Moon, he has his own song, but I do think maybe he does feel a bit more like a Pokeball Pokemon, and I just don't know how interesting he would be as a playable character. After thinking about it for a while, because I was a big Mimikyu supporter, but that was mainly because the Pokemon I do think we're going to get in, he's far more easier to visualize as a fighter. And even though he's not one of my favourite Pokemon, and originally I thought he wouldn't be unique enough, upon ruminating on this a bit more, I realised that he does fill a particular niche that the Smash roster is missing. And this is Incineroar, the Firestarter, who is basically a heel wrestler. So he could kind of classify as a villain, but I think the more important aspect is the fact that he's a wrestler and a grapple character, basically. And Smash doesn't have a grapple character. It's like a fighting game staple that Smash just completely lacks. I always used to think it was Travis Touchdown who would be the grapple character in this game because he loves wrestling, and that's what Suda51 wanted. But Incineroar just is far more likely to get in than Travis Touchdown is. And when you look at the popularity polls, Incineroar's not as popular as Mimikyu, but he is more popular than Decidueye. And in the anime, Ash doesn't have one yet, but his Litten has evolved, unlike his Rowlet. And it's very likely that his Litten will eventually fully evolve into Incineroar before the series is over. So with all that in mind, Incineroar is definitely being built up to be a big Pokemon from Sun and Moon. And as he already fits the Smash mold in his design and how he might play, I have a feeling that that's the one that Sakurai has gone for this time. So, from one Nintendo series to another, we've done Pokemon. There's another series that I think deserves to get another rep, and a lot of people have agreed with me on this, and that is Xenoblade. Now, Xenoblade is a rising series. It's effectively Nintendo's current major JRPG series, taking over from Golden Sun, which took over from Mother. And since Smash for Wii U came out, we've had a port of the original Wii game, as well as 2 new games in the Xenoblade series, and this new DLC, which is effectively the length of an actual game. It's like a spin-off to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So it's almost like having 3 whole games. And while many people want to see Rex and Pyra, I have always been a pusher of the idea that they were too new for when this game was decided. And we've seen that the project plan says December 2015. And we know that Rex and Pyra's final designs weren't decided on until 2016. So if they were the ones that Sakurai wanted for this game, he'd have had to start on them later, which is entirely possible. But considering how much work seems to have gone into this game and how much Sakurai has stressed that adding in everything from prior games, or almost everything, has really put a big toll on the development and stuff, I can't imagine him waiting on something like that. Whereas instead, Elma from Xenoblade Chronicles X, she was from a game that literally came out in December 2015 worldwide. It was already out in Japan the April before, but it had DLC throughout the whole year, and then got its worldwide release in December 2015, so she was very relevant at that time. And we know from interviews in the past that Sakurai has looked at relevancy. When he chose Robin and thought about Chrom, it was when Awakening had just come out in Japan, and had really blown up the series. And of course there was Kid Icarus Uprising, which also came out the same year that Smash for Wii U and 3DS's project plan was decided on. So Elma seems very likely to me. And there's also that mecha toy that Sakurai bought that we know is for Smash because of when he bought it, but we don't know how it fits in yet. And while he bought it specifically for the gun, the mech itself does kind of match up with Elma's, and the gun does kind of match up with that. And considering when he bought it, it seems that he may have bought it post-project plan, because the interview where he talks about this is actually late 2016. And he says he bought it recently, so you have to take into account when this interview was probably conducted, so it could have been October 2016, but still recently in there doesn't really make December 2015. But it's entirely possible that that's when they were working on like Elma's models and stuff like that, and he needed the gun for a reference so that they could accurately create it. At least that's my thoughts. Elma makes a lot of sense, she's a popular pick. She might not be as popular as Rex and Pyra, but that's because they're far more relevant right now. Elma is far more unique than them compared to Rex, who's just another sword user. I know it's different because Pyra's there, and Elma also uses swords, but she uses 2 swords and 2 guns primarily, and I just think that stands out a lot more than Rex and his big old sword. So Elma is the next character I think we'll get. So now the other newcomer that I think will be revealed before the game comes out is another third party, a really popular pick from Square Enix. His name begins with a G. I am of course talking about Goku. Wait, what do you mean that Dragon Ball and Dragon Quest are different things? They look the same. Okay, sorry about that. I meant a Dragon Quest character. This is one that I feel like a lot of Smash fans sleep on, because they don't realise how big of a series Dragon Quest actually is. Like, when they think of JRPGs, a lot of people turn to Final Fantasy, and I completely understand why. That was the big one over in the West. But Dragon Quest is the father of JRPGs. Dragon Quest came first, and Dragon Quest is the one that set all the foundations for how every JRPG would follow. Like, without Dragon Quest, I think it's safe to say that the JRPG genre wouldn't be what it's like today. And while it didn't take off as well over in the West, it's undeniable how much of a cultural influence it was on Japan. There are Dragon Quest museums, Dragon Quest trains, you can buy Dragon Quest mints in like every single shop, they look like the slimes. There's just a ton of Dragon Quest merchandise, and it even got its own manga in Weekly Shonen Jump, which is, you know, Japan's biggest manga publication. The series is still going strong and very relevant, with Dragon Quest XI nearly coming out, and Sakurai has had interviews about the series before. If there's any other Square Enix rep that I think could get into Smash, it's someone from Dragon Quest. Now, the main problem that people have is, who do you pick from Dragon Quest? Which of course is totally understandable, because just like Final Fantasy, the protagonist changes in every single game. And unlike Final Fantasy, they all kind of look the same and are more like silent protagonists in the Dragon Quest series, which does make it pretty difficult. The most recognisable character in the whole series is Slime himself, but he's much more on the assist trophy role, considering he's a bit like a Goomba. But there is one character who I think fits the sort of cloud idea of Dragon Quest, and that's Erdrick, the main character of Dragon Quest III. Now, I say this for two reasons. The first is that Dragon Quest III was voted in Japan to be the most popular Dragon Quest game. A lot of people consider 8 the most popular over here, and that's because that was the biggest one that released over here. I mean, I was also under the same assumption, but upon doing research I discovered that 3 was the one that everyone remembered the most, the final NES game. And Erdrick is the star of that. But for Dragon Quest 1 and 2, he's also a big part of that. The original 3 Dragon Quest games are effectively the Erdrick trilogy, even though you only play as him in the last one. And it's his iconic look that's kind of cemented in the minds of all Japanese players for Dragon Quest. His both casual tunic design and his legendary armor outfit. And you just see both of them pop up in tons of cultural media out there. So those are the 4 newcomers I think will be revealed before the game comes out. Now, there are 3 Echo Fighters that I see, and one of them I'm sure of. The other 2, I'm going back and forth whether or not we'll get both of them or just one of them, and whether or not the 3 Echo Fighters will even be revealed before the game comes out. I think one will. I could even bet that one of them will be revealed in this Direct coming up. And that one I'm thinking of is Isabelle. Now, Isabelle is arguably Nintendo's only remaining All-Star other than Toad, who isn't in Smash yet. And originally I wasn't for Isabelle, because I thought that she's a pacifist, right? It's not in her character to fight each other. You see it from her assist trophy where she gets like scared and jumps back when people are fighting. So it didn't quite fit in character. But I argued the same thing for Daisy against Peach. I didn't think Daisy would get in because I didn't think she suited being a Peach clone. And, well, I was wrong. Sakurai thought differently. So if Sakurai's open to, changing his perspectives around to get popular characters in, then I could totally see him having Isabelle, because the villager's moveset would just really fit her. And they're roughly the same sort of height and stature, so it would be a pretty easy Echo Fighter to have. And it would make fans happy. So Isabelle is one I feel is very likely. And I think she'll be the one that they reveal before release. Now, the other 2, I could see them keeping a secret, and both of them are popular picks at the moment. But I'll explain why I'm not as confident in both of them. And that is Dark Samus and Chrom from Fire Emblem. So Dark Samus is the more likely of the 2, in my opinion. Dark Samus is a popular villain. The Metroid Prime series doesn't have an actual character from it yet, and Dark Samus is basically the main villain of that series, so it makes sense there. She could be a Samus clone. She does do different stuff in the game, but she can do the same stuff Dark Samus does. And they have a very similar power level. All you really need to change is Dark Samus's attacks can do like phase-on poison. So they hit and they have like a lasting effect. But maybe she's like slightly slower, or the base attack is weaker but it has this lasting poison effect. I think either of those could work to represent her well. And I think she's in because of the fact that Samus had her Dark Samus ult changed. Before it was the black and blue, just like Dark Samus, but now it's a black and orange. And this isn't the case like with Wario's Wario Land 3 outfit being removed from the jump from Brawl to Smash 4. Even though he had a good outfit that was a nice reference, they just cut it for no reason. Like, this is the same dark costume. They've just specifically changed the colour from being Dark Samus's blue to Samus's black. And they did a very similar thing with Pit and Dark Pit in the last game. Pit still had a black outfit in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, but he just didn't have the black hair anymore. It's because otherwise he would be too identical to Dark Pit. And so that's what I think they've done this time with Dark Samus. But again, it's just a costume. It's really the only thing we got, and the fact that her assist trophy hasn't been seen yet. But we don't know everything in the game. Her assist trophy could show up in this direct coming up, or it could just be that they wanted to change the costume to fit Samus more. Who knows? And it's the same situation with Chrom. A lot of people think Chrom, because he was thought of for Smash for Wii U and 3DS, he's a popular character, and in that game they describe him as being like a carbon copy of Ike. And Sakurai described him as being like a cross between Ike and Marth. So my thought is he plays a lot like Ike, he has an Aether just like Ike does, but he also could have the sort of tipper mechanic that Marth does, because Ike doesn't have that. All of his power is in the hilt, whereas they could have Chrom's all be at the tip of the blade. Thus having this idea that he's a mixture of the two of them, but being predominantly Ike's moveset so he can be an Echo Fighter. And so that makes a lot of sense. But the only real evidence we have for these assumptions aren't very concrete. We have the fact that we haven't seen Robin's Final Smash, and he's the only Fire Emblem game we haven't seen, but then they could just be holding it off. There might not be any reason. After all, Robin's Final Smash does fit with the style of Final Smashes they've been doing. So they could just be holding off Robin's Final Smash just so that that speculation around Chrom can be driven. Then there's also Ike losing his Chrom ult, but you have to remember, just like the jump from Wario in Brawl, where he had 12 outfits, 6 for his regular overall, 6 for his biker outfit, and then they cut down half of them so he could have 8, a mixture of both. Ike now has 2 special outfits as well, his young form and his older form, and the young form is the one this time that has the blue and white outfit, this time being based more on Sigurd from Genealogy rather than being based on Chrom. And so that just could be the simple reason why he lost his Chrom ult, because they went with young Ike's blue version instead of adult Ike's blue version. Like, it could be as simple as that. It doesn't really mean anything. And there's also the fact that Sakurai has also expressed worry over oversaturating Fire Emblem already, because it has 6 characters. And I mean, if we had Chrom, that would be 3 of those characters, there'd be 7 characters, and 3 of them would be just clones, essentially, or semi-clones. You'd have Roy, Lucina, and Chrom. So that's not really gotten in the way of Sakurai in the past, but he has brought it up. And while I could see Chrom, I think he's the less likely of those 2. But we still might get both of them, so I'm going to put them both down here, Dark Samus and Chrom. Now the last character I think we'll get is another newcomer. This one won't be revealed until after the game's release, because Sakurai likes to have his surprises, and I think it'll be the last character you unlock, filling that role of Game & Watch, Duck Hunt and Rob. And for this character, I think it will be everyone's favourite, King K. Rool, because he is such a popular character, and they're almost certainly going to use ballot stuff for this game, that I can't not see him being added in this game. He's not like the Ridley issue, where Ridley was too big and it didn't feel natural for him to be in. I mean, King K. Rool is big, but he's also pudgy, so he could easily be shrunk down and be about Bowser's height or Ridley's height and fit in perfectly fine. And we saw from his Mii Fighter costume that was added in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, almost certainly because it was like a consolation prize because he didn't win the ballot, Bayonetta beat him. But in that Mii Fighter costume, King K. Rool was referred to as the Retro Revival, using his classic SNES form. And that gives us a good idea for how Sakurai actually views King K. Rool. He views King K. Rool as a retro character. And so he could very easily fit the role of Duck Hunt, Game & Watch, and Rob, who are all retro characters in their own right. Now, they're more hardware reps, but considering that we're not getting as many characters this time around, and we don't even have another retro character, they could have just slammed both of them together. I think King K. Rool would make sense as the final character to unlock because he's so popular. I think it would be an amazing sort of last final reveal for fans of Super Smash Bros. Who are getting through the game. And yeah, I think that just works. It's a good idea, and I could totally see it happening. And Donkey Kong is really in need of another character, and King K. Rool is the more unique of the two possible candidates. Sorry, Dixie fans. But that's it. Those are the 8 characters I think we will get. 4 or 5 of them will be revealed before the game comes out. But I guess we'll find out on Wednesday whether I've been right or wrong in my initial predictions here. So, hopefully, I'm right, and we can keep going down this hype train and see where it takes us. But thank you for listening to this nonsensical rambling that I've been going on for, completely unscripted here. So, thanks for putting up with that. Let me know which characters you would like to see in the comments below. I want to give a special shout out to all the Patreons on the left here, in particular our super patron, the Duke of Dorks. If you could share this video, give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. Let's go Smash fans, we got a big info dump coming this week, it's going to be exciting, and as you all know, we will be covering all of it, so always remember to return to the source.